Okay, this is going to be a quick explanation for the last problem that we didn't get a chance to get to in class. It was number 5, looking at Canada and the United States and their trade relationship and determining not only the benefits of trade, but then in this case we're going to add another layer, the terms of trade, in which would be necessary in order for these countries to agree in order to trade wheat and cloth between the two. So looking at the opportunity cost table that we've got here, we can identify that, again, this is going to be an input example where we see that the way the ratios that we're getting, or the information we're given, is in terms of the resource of time, that common identifying factor. And so what we can see in this is that even though we can do our quick cross multiplier, we can see that the United States would have a comparative advantage in wheat. Canada is going to have a comparative advantage in cloth. And but in order to figure this problem out, we're going to have to actually identify the opportunity cost of the production of each for both countries in this problem, because right now we don't know what is going to be a beneficial term of trade. So even though we know the comparative advantage, we're going to have to figure out the opportunity costs, and we can do that again by looking at 1 unit of wheat would basically cost the United States 1/2 unit of cloth. Again, because we're looking at this as an input example, and if we just inverse that, we're going to have 1 unit of cloth would cost the United States 2 units, or 2 tons of wheat. Canada, on the flip side, is going to the opportunity cost for wheat is going to be 3/4 of a bolt of cloth, or 4/3 in terms of cloth or tons of wheat in the production opportunity costs. So, looking at the next step here is what would be a reasonable term of trade. Well, again, given our and this concept is called the barter price. We don't have the term to trade, so what we have to look at is what would 1 unit of wheat cost, or what would the United States be willing to give 1 unit of wheat for? Well, they're going to want to get more than what it's going to cost them to produce cloth. So hopefully, in order to produce 1 unit of wheat, they're going to get at least 1/2 unit of cloth or more. And this is the U.S., and for Canada, they're looking at it and saying, well, if we're going to get wheat, we don't want to have to give up more than 3/4 a unit of cloth, because that's what it would cost us to produce on our own. So this is Canada over here. And so what happens if we take a multiplier, and I'm just going to flip the screens here for a second, we're going to see that, again, the opportunity cost of 1 unit of wheat would be 3/4, or if we converted that to a common denominator, we see that the United States would be willing to accept anything more than 4/8 of a unit of cloth, because that would be they would be getting more than it would cost them to produce it, and Canada would want to do it for anything that is less. If we look at that midpoint in between, 5/8 would be something that would be favorable to both to trade. So if we again just change it to common denominators, we'd have 4/8 here, and this would be 6/8, and now we have a common balance, or 5/8 units, or for a balance or a bartering price for, in this case, 1 ton of wheat would cost, or be agreed upon trade agreement would be 5/8 units of cloth. So now looking at the part of Canada and looking at the production possibilities curve and their consumption possibilities curve, first of all, we assume that there's a 60-hour production period, which tells us that given 60 hours, Canada, producing wheat 1 ton every 3 hours, could produce 20 tons of wheat, or they could produce 15 bolts of cloth. And so we could plot that out on a PPC, or production possibilities curve, and it would look something like that. Now, given that we know that Canada is going to specialize in cloth, we're going to find that they are going to produce at a point here, at a point of 15, they're going to produce 15 units of cloth. But we also know that the agreed upon terms of trade will be that 1 unit or 1 ton of wheat will equal 5/8 units of cloth. And given that that Canada could produce in specialized only in cloth, 15 units. They could technically now trade all of that cloth, and if we were to take 15 and divide it by 5/8, we would actually get 24 units of wheat. So we effectively have created now a new consumption possibilities frontier, which would be somewhere along this line. So it would be at a potential 24 units of wheat and 15 units of cloth that now Canada has the potential of consuming now that it's trading with the United States. Hopefully that helped clarify, again, the last two problems on that practice set. Please email me or bring questions to class so we can go over these some more. Otherwise, hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.